Stephane Massa-Bidal is an artist I've usually used to introduce students to techniques on Photoshop or other digital editing software. This video is to show you how to create a response to Massa-Bidal's work without using a computer, but rather using collage techniques such as cutting, sticking and layering. I will demonstrate how I created two of my outcomes, but there are tons of ways you can explore this method of manipulating photographic prints. As an artist, I can definitely tell you that collaging is one of the best ways to explore ideas. The first thing you need to do is print a couple of photographs that look like they might go quite well together. I've printed out about 4 copies of each photo at around an A5 size, although I ended up printing another one later on. Regretfully, my printer is not that great, and this is a very last minute video, so my outcomes won't look the best they possibly can be. If you need copies printed, make sure you request these as soon as possible so you've got plenty of time to collage with them later on. Once I've trimmed my photo, with a guillotine of course, I have a think about the placement of my word. Stir, short for Sturminster Newton, has 4 letters, so I divide the width of my photo by 4 and take 2 to 3 centimetres off the top and bottom to give me a space for each letter. My word needs to be drawn backwards because I'm drawing it on the other side of my photo. I practice by writing stir backwards underneath where I've written it, then draw these backwards shapes nice and big to fill the spaces. I then draw rectangular shapes around the lines for the letters I have drawn to turn this into block lettering. I am just working off the top of my head, but you could look at font space or font types on Word or PowerPoint to get some ideas. Just make sure the font is simple and bold. This will make it easier when you are cutting the letters out. You then need to carefully cut the letters out. I used a pair of nail scissors because they're nice and small, carefully snipping in the middle of the shapes, then cutting around the outline. If I wanted to make this a bit easier, I would probably use a craft knife, cutting mat and a ruler. Before I stick this down, I practiced lining the letters up with the background. I noticed earlier that there's a line that goes along the edge of the river in almost exactly the same place on both photos, so I have a little practice at lining this up. Then, using a scrap piece of paper to protect my surfaces, I stick this down. I had a bit more fun with this outcome as I began exploring more creative and imaginative ideas. Looking at my 2 photos, I like the one at the bottom the best because of the luscious, vibrant green colours, but I definitely want to keep the mill, so I use my nail scissors to carefully cut this out. I move this around to try and find the best place for it. I don't want it to be floating around on top of the horizon line, so I used another of the nice green photos and cut the lovely grassy land away from the sky, paying careful attention to capture all of the detail of the trees and the bushes. Well, not all of the detail, this bit could be smoothed out a bit, I think. I play around with the placement of this layer, though nothing gets stuck down until the end. You will see that I am constantly changing parts around, rethinking the layout of this piece throughout the whole time. I quite like the idea of having white writing in the background, a bit like some of Massa-Bidal's pieces. I hold up scraps of plain paper where I want the word to be, folding it into the right size. I use the same process of dividing the paper up to evenly space out my letters so they are all the same size and the word is exactly as big as I want it to be. Having cut my word out to go behind the mill, I'm not too sure now, as it feels too busy. I'll just leave it here in this space for the moment and see what happens later. I like this photo of my mum and her dog Bella posing in a monument near Longleat Safari Park. The ring is a perfectly random shape to fit into my landscape and again reminds me of some of Stephane Massa-Bidal's structures. I feel bad getting rid of my mum, but this piece is very much about her anyway, as the photos of Sturminster Newton were actually taken near her new home. Yes, this ring is a perfect fit. No need for the smaller photo now, and the stir fits quite nicely here too. I've decided something needs to go in front of this ring though. Luckily, I have another green photo to take another layer of grass from. I'm considering where best to cut, as it seems the light is hitting the tops of the grass mounds, so I need to make sure I include the more yellowy green bits. This is really starting to come together, but it needs something else. I quite like these ripples from the mill photo, and this offcut seems the right size to go inside the ring. I mark out the space and divide it by the letters I'm using. I have decided to write 21k 44m, 21 kilometres to Sturminster Newton from my house and 44 minutes to get there. I've also decided to squish these letters together slightly, so people have to really look closely to read what it says. One last long play around to finalise my composition. Try and work out the easiest bits to stick down first. This would usually be the background pieces, but I really don't want to knock my pieces and lose their places. In retrospect, I could have used glue tack to keep them in place. I mark out my first piece with small pencil marks so I remember where it was, but I don't need to do this again, it's more about confidence than anything else. It then all gets glued down and lastly trim down the edges just to neaten it up.